It's a landmark deal that is supposed to end a bloody conflict that has gone on for generations. Leaders of the Revolutionary Armed Forces of Colombia, or FARC, are holding talks about a peace agreement with the country's government. If all goes according to plan, that peace deal will be signed next week. But two pressing issues remain: land ownership and reintegrating fighters back into society. CCTV's Michelle Begue begins our insight.
El jefe de la delegación del gobierno de Colombia.
The wide-ranging agreement not only covers a lot of ground, part of it literally concerns the ground.
Logramos un acuerdo sobre el primer punto.
We reached an agreement on rural development, which simply translates into more development for rural areas and better quality of life for our farmers.
The vegetation in this Bogotá National Park is lush because of Colombia's rich soil. This land is rich in another sense, too. Owning it can make you rich, which is why the expression, the 1%, has a more specific meaning here. Colombia's 1% are landowners, which is why the FARC has pressed so long for land reform. According to a UN study, land distribution here is among the most unequal in the world. More than half of the country's farms are held by only 1% of landowners. So the two sides agreed to redistribute land through a new Lands for Peace fund. They've pledged to improve the country's infrastructure, its health and education services, and step up efforts to eradicate poverty. As Mao Zedong once said, political power grows out of the barrel of a gun. So the guerrillas asked for assurances they'll have political power when they put down their arms. They got them. The agreement guarantees their participation in government. A symbol of that pledge? Signing the accord with special bolígrafos, or bullet pens, made from what was once live ammunition.
The important aspects that so far have been agreed on give Colombians the possibility of opening the doors for a true democracy.
Opening doors to a stronger democracy will require closing doors on drugs. The government has long accused the guerrillas of drug trafficking to fund their war. To help beat swords into plowshares, programs to encourage the FARC to swap coca for coffee or some other crop unrelated to the drug trade.
The
FARC commits in the agreement to contribute in an effective way with major determination through different means and practical actions towards solving the problem of illicit drugs.
The agreement also addresses the healing process, as does this memorial. This is Bogotá Center for Memory, Peace, and Reconciliation. Colombians built this memorial looking forward to this day. The center's sculpture garden is dedicated to the conflict's 6 million victims. Every corner of this space is an expression of hope after a conflict that outlasted America's longest war and dragged on after the end of the Cold War.
The sound that you hear and what you're seeing tonight, not hammers and sickles, but hammers and chisels as young people take down this wall bit by bit.
Beyond 9/11 and a second war in Iraq. 10 Colombian presidents have come and gone. And 8 U.S. presidents. Latin America's longest armed conflict finally over after talks that at times like the war felt like they would never end. Michelle Begue, CCTV, Bogotá.
And Michelle joins us live from Bogotá. Remarkable achievement, however you look at this. It took 4 years of negotiations in Cuba, Michelle, and it took more than a year to draft this peace accord. So how comprehensive is it?
Asier, as you saw, it touches so many different bases. And just so you have an idea, it takes up 297 pages, which is something that a lot of Colombians say is just way too dense to read. So Colombians are forming their opinions on this accord by looking at experts, politicians, media outlets that they trust in order to decide if they agree with what was written down in this accord.
Michelle, the signing is supposed to be next Monday, but it is still not a done deal. There's a referendum in Colombia set for early October. Talk to us about this process.
Yes, well, right now we're waiting for that moment when Colombians are going to go out and vote. And in order for it to be ratified, the majority of the people that vote are going to have to vote yes. If the no vote wins, then the deal is completely off. So what we're seeing right now in the next 2 weeks is a lot of campaigning on both sides to rally up the votes, the yes votes, the no votes. And the Colombian government is also taking out lots of ads on the radio and television to explain what they see as benefits of this accord so that people are more pushed to vote yes.
Michelle Begue, live for us in Bogota. Thank you, Michelle. And in Michelle's report, you heard from the FARC peace negotiator Ivan Marquez. CCTV's Toby Muse talked with him as these FARC conferences got underway. He joins us from San Vicente del Caguan. Toby, what did he have to say?
That's correct. We did sit down and had a one-on-one interview with the FARC's #2 commander, Ivan Marquez. We touched on a number of different issues. What was the FARC's role in combating drug trafficking after the peace process? In that, he said that the FARC were going to pressure the government to go after money launderers. We talked about the FARC as a political party. How would it be different from other political parties? He said that the FARC would be a political party that would try to cover all of Colombians, and he anticipated that it would have good results. But we also talked about what life would be like for the FARC leadership. Here's what he said.
During the FARC's 10th conference, we sat down for a one-on-one interview with the rebels' #2 commander, the guerrilla known as Ivan Marquez. Marquez is one of the most well-known guerrillas in Colombia, having led the negotiating team in the peace process. Do you think Colombia will approve the peace process in the upcoming plebiscite?
We have infinite confidence in the Colombian people's decision to reach their dream of peace and reconciliation, a dream that has eluded them for so many years. There are only a few who clamor for war, and they're being left behind.
Marquez said that he hoped the peace process with the FARC could encourage separate peace deals with Colombia's other rebel groups and the far-right paramilitaries.
With the agreement, we hope with all our hearts that they will find an understanding with the government for a political solution. With the paramilitaries, they have expressed a readiness to surrender to justice.
I asked how the FARC would help in the fight against the cocaine mafias. He said that the FARC had pressured the government to stop focusing on the small coca farmers and go after what he calls the motor of the cocaine trade, money laundering.
The Colombian government has never gone after the motor of the drugs trade. Money laundering, which involves corrupt bankers, they always go unnoticed. No one touches them. There is a promise that the government will go after the corrupt bankers.
And he made clear that while the FARC would become a political party and lay down its weapons, it would never give up its dream of taking power.
Nos imaginamos recorriendo todo el país.
We see ourselves traveling across the country, advocating for peace, organizing people, offering a political alternative, representing all Colombians, and aiming to govern the country.
Toby Muse, CCTV, Jari, Colombia.
Let me bring Michelle Begue back into the conversation. And Michelle, you heard what the FARC commander had to say. He would never give up his dream, or FARC would never give up its dream of taking power. How is that message being received by the Colombian people?
Asier, The biggest issue here is trust. The Colombian people really want to see steps taken by the FARC to show that they can trust them. It's 50 years of an armed conflict. A lot of people are still upset about issues of narco-trafficking, kidnapping. We spoke to family members of kidnapped victims who were people who've been kidnapped by the FARC for 16, 17 years. They haven't heard anything from their family members in the last 4 or 5 years, and they want to know what happened to these people. So there's a lot of hurt, and trust is going to be a big issue moving forward after this peace accord.
Hurt and trust. Toby, a celebratory atmosphere behind you. It's almost like FARC rebels see this as a done deal, and from their perspective, is it?
Well, I was speaking to a FARC commander this afternoon, and I asked him ahead of this vote what his guess was of the number of FARC members of this Congress who would oppose the peace vote. He said he thought it would be about 1% could vote against the peace deal in the FARC Congress, but he emphasized, even if they vote against it and the 99% vote for it, these guerrillas will follow the party line. And I think this is important to mention. The FARC really just see this as a change of means rather than the end. Up to now, they've tried to take power using the gun. And then when they lay down the guns, they will try at the ballot box. But the organization won't change. People will remain members of the FARC even after this peace deal is signed. But yes, as you say, there is a celebratory mood here. And I think the FARC has decided to go out big as an armed revolutionary group. Every night there's these concerts. And I think there's a mixture within the rank and file of excitement over the prospect of peace, but also there are concerns. Will the government hold up its end of the deal? That's a big concern here.
Let me pose a question to both of you. The agreement really, does it tie up all the loose ends? Far from perfect. Toby, let me begin with you. If this does take effect, there are still many unresolved issues.
Yes, there are a number of issues. For the FARC, there are two major issues. The FARC say the biggest issue is paramilitarism. Colombia has a long, sad history of political violence. There was a left-wing party that was created with some members, ex-members of the FARC in the 1980s and 90s called the Unión Patriótica. 5,000 members of that party, this legal party, were killed. And the FARC say, we fear something could happen similar. And unfortunately, there is reasons to fear. I was speaking to someone with very good connections to the underworld, the paramilitaries, and he said that he had heard that already some paramilitary bosses were saying openly that they would be looking to kill guerrillas who demobilized. So that really puts the state really has to step up and ensure the safety of these guerrillas when they lay down their weapons.
So let's talk about the government. Michelle, what about the government's viewpoint? Does this agreement cover all the outstanding issues?
We need to understand that right now, in a way, the government is campaigning for people to really support this peace accord. But they have admitted that there are things that are not going to be perfect about this agreement. Humberto de la Calle, the day the agreement was announced, said this is the best accord we could have reached. President Juan Manuel Santos has expressed a similar statement saying that this is the best agreement that they could come to, and it's better than a war that will last another 20 to 30 years. And we have also heard a lot of congressmen and women who support this accord say, we prefer an imperfect agreement to a perfect war. That seems to be the motto. Two sides did their best to reach an agreement. They had to make concessions, but this is what they came up with after 4 years, and it's what they're presenting to the Colombian people.
All right, we'll leave it there. Michelle Begue live for us in Bogota. Toby Muse live in San Vicente del Caguán. Thank you to you both.